Hello, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Innovation Scholars Secondments in Architecture and Design Information webinar number 1. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you very much for your time. Can I have the next slide, please? So first of all, we'll give you a little bit of introduction to the history of the Innovation Scholars Programme in the context of UKRI. So UKRI's talent programme, which most of you will have heard of the other part of it, which is the Future Leader Fellowships Programme. Alongside that, there was a smaller trial programme called UKRI Innovation Scholars. And the first two parts of the trial were run in biomedical sciences. And so far, we funded 2 calls in there, 2 secondment calls and also a training call. Both of the funding opportunities can be found at the links below if you're interested in the presentation. And the purpose of these was really for us to increase porosity between business, academia and other sectors within the biomedical sciences community. And this AHRC call, which Aga, my colleague, is soon going to give you a little of information about, is a continuation of this trial. Over to you, Aga.
Thank you very much, Matt. Welcome, everyone. I will just quickly explain why HRC decided to join the UKRI Innovation Scholars Programme and why are we excited to pilot this call. So can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. Some of you might have seen a couple of months ago, HRC published a new vision statement, Discovering Our World. The illustration that you can see on this slide is taken from this statement. And as you can see, creative economy is one of the headings that's highlighted in it because we have identified it as one of our main research areas to support. And within this area, we are committed to incentivize supportive engagements with business through a range of investments. So Innovation Scholars secondments very much fit into this. On the slightly higher level, the UKRI corporate plan includes a priority objective to strengthen networks across the research and innovation landscape. And again, it is about connecting sectors. It's about that knowledge exchange. And finally, on the national level, we've got the recently published by BASE Research and Development People and Culture Strategy, which includes a pledge to provide support for flexible cross-sector training programs to encourage more movement and collaboration between academia, industry, and the third sector. So as a funder of arts and humanities research, we thought that it was very exciting to join the Innovation Scholars Programme and offer that kind of opportunity for secondments for the very first time. Next slide, please. For this specific call, our objectives are very much based on the objectives of the previous 2 Innovation Scholars call. And I just wanted to quickly run through the success measures for them as well, because I imagine many of you might be interested in that. So objective number 1 is obviously to create porosity between sectors. And here we want to see for each of the secondments to involve an organization that undertakes architecture or design research and innovation as either a seconding organization or the one that hosts. And secondly, we want for each secondment to involve academic and non-higher education institution staff, helping an individual during a secondment focused on research or innovation. So the secondee is expected to be supported to undertake research and innovation and to actively engage in the new environment at the organization that will be hosting that secondment. Next slide, please. This is very much a people-focused call. So I wanted to really bring your attention to this objective, which is about the individual and their potential and their growth, namely to boost the skills, knowledge, networking opportunities, and therefore career development of secondees. And the success measures here are for the secondee to enhance their skills and knowledge or develop some new skills and knowledge, for them to find, identify, explore some potential new career prospects, And thirdly, the second D should participate in networking or cohort events that Matt and myself and colleagues at HRC will jointly organize. So people participating in the secondments will be able to make connections, share ideas, and create a community of innovation scholars in architecture and design. Next slide, please. The third objective is about intensifying knowledge exchange across sectors, which is expected to result in innovative outputs. So firstly, the second D should work on a project or activities that contribute towards solving real-world challenges within the hosting organization. And we expect that these activities will result in at least one innovative output. And this could be a process, a service, a research paper, some public engagement events, or internal training resources. The selection here is definitely not exhaustive. It's just a list of examples. But the innovative aspects should definitely be something that we would want you to highlight in your application, and obviously further down the line to evidence in reporting. And the fourth objective, next slide, please, is the broadest one. So we hope that those secondments will add value to the architecture and design sectors and more generally to the UK economy through the following success measures. It is about benefiting architecture or design as a research field. It is also about some interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary skills, academic or professional, allowing for permeability between disciplines as well as sectors. And last but not least, we expect that each secondment will bring some wider benefits or wider impact. This could be of the social, cultural, environmental, or economic type. So again, we've got a couple of bullet points here. These are just examples. We hope that secondees will be very creative in sort of indicating what they hope might be the impact of their projects, but it might be within the area of improving ways of working at the hosting organization or increasing productivity, or for example, some wider challenges that the country is currently facing, such as efforts towards a greener economy or supporting levelling up across the UK. So that's the 4 objectives and their success measures, and Matt will now outline the eligibility requirements.
Thank you very much, Aga. So first of all, as Aga says, the eligibility requirements. So the host organisation, this is the organisation that receives the secondee, who is normal from their normal employer. You must be a project partner on the JES application. So there's a place on a JES application form where you can list project partners, and as a minimum, the host organisation must be listed as a partner. This means that if the host organisation, the organisation hosting the secondee, is an academic institution, and the academic institution should be the project partner. And I know that's a little unusual, so I thought I'd highlight it. You will provide, as part of the submission, evidence that you'll provide a suitable environment for the secondment to take place. And you also need to explain the benefit that the secondment will have to you as a host organisation, to the secondee, and to the architecture and design disciplines. The seconding or sending organisation should be the normal employer of the secondee. They should lead the application and name a principal investigator who will be responsible for leading the project and will also be responsible for assurance of the funding that is received. They should be the organisation should be research and innovation active. They should be registered in the UK and hold a UK bank account. And they should claim and manage the grant if awarded. The secondee must be resident in the UK, in employment within the sending organisation for the entire duration of the secondment, willing to do an research or innovation related to architecture and design at a postdoctoral level. They needn't necessarily have postdoctoral equivalent qualifications. So for example, they don't need to hold, for example, a PhD, but they do need to be capable of doing research and innovation work at that level. And finally, they should be included, named in the JS application, either as the PI, if they are also leading the project and being responsible for its finances, or as a named researcher if the PI is a different individual. Next slide, please. So the AHRC pilot has a few additional requirements. So with regards to partnership, the Arts and Humanities Research Council requires that either the host or seconding organisation must be a research organisation, RO, or independent research organisation, IRO. That is to say, it must be recognised by AHRC as one of those two different entities, and further information can be found regarding this on the UKRI website, which holds a list of IROs. Universities are, of course, all recognised as ROs if they're research active. The other partner must be of a different type of organisation, whether it be a private corporate organisation, such as a business, or a public or third sector organisation, such as a local authority or a charitable organisation. One of the partners must have the capacity to undertake architecture and design activity. Consortia of more than one hosts to enable a project to occur are allowed. So a secondee can visit two different hosts and undertake a project with two different hosts if that will enable a project to occur. Secondment project duration should be a minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 3 years, but it can be full or part-time. And when we say part-time, we do really mean any degree of part-time that would suit the project. So we are willing to be very flexible when it comes to part-time programs. Next slide, please. So types of organisation that we can fund on this. Research organisations, so universities, higher educational institutions, non-profit organisations undertaking research and technology activities, including catapults, public sector research establishments, research council institutes, and in addition to that, we can also fund businesses, small or micro, medium, large, as long as they are registered with Companies House in the United Kingdom. And as we've already said, have a UK bank account. Public sector organisations and charities doing research activity and having the status of independent research organisations are also eligible. I'll now hand over to my colleague, Aga, who will give you a little bit more information about some discipline-specific requirements.
If we could have, yeah, that's the right slide. Thank you so much, UKRI events colleagues. I just wanted to emphasise that this call is actually very, very broad in its scope. So we are not defining any specific question to address, but each secondment project has to fall within HRC remit predominantly, even if it is interdisciplinary. The majority of the activity has to be within one of those disciplines that you can see on the slide. These are design and architecture sub-disciplines within HRC remit, which you can also find on our website under the remit tab. I'll put the link in the chat later. We are open to secondments that could cover any of those sub-disciplines, interests, or topics, or a combination. And if you are uncertain about your potential project, you can submit a remit query form, which we can review for you and advise you on whether you would be eligible in that sense. Next slide, please. These are some potential research areas that we have included in the funding opportunity text on UKRI Funding Finder. That's just to give you some inspiration, just to provide some ideas. It would be fantastic to have some secondments that would focus on architecture and design supporting communities, placemaking and levelling up, or architecture and design for the environment, for adapting to climate change and minimizing its negative effects, for net zero green design. as well as for another currently very hot topic, which is well-being and good health, including widely understood post-COVID recovery. So we don't require for applications to focus on these areas. In the assessment process, everyone will be assessed according to the same criteria. So if you choose one of those topics, you won't have advantage over other applicants. However, we strongly encourage all applicants to consider these topics. Next slide, please. And that's the key dates that are important for anyone who would like to apply for this opportunity. We are very excited about this call, and this is the first time HRC is running a funding opportunity for such secondments. That's why we did our best to keep it live, or make it live with enough notice for the community, and also so you can forge those partnerships that are needed for the secondments without rushing. So we published a pre-announcement in November 2021 before Christmas, and the call went live on the 11th of January. Today is our very first information webinar. We've got 2 more scheduled for, I think, the 1st of March and then 27th of April, off the top of my head. The content of the presentation will be the same, but if you have some specific questions that sort of emerge in your process of putting together an application, there's nothing stopping you from signing up for another webinar and coming up with those specific questions. The call will close on the 26th of May 2022, and we are planning an assessment panel in the autumn. Hopefully the outcomes should be announced in November 2022, and Matt already mentioned the secondments should last between 3 months and 3 years. So that's a really great flexibility. But there is one requirement here, that they all begin between the 1st of January and 31st of December 2023, so next year. We will be running a welcome event for the secondees and a showcase event once the projects are underway. So the preliminary timings for these are February 2023 and February 2024. At this point in time, I'm unable to say if they're going to be in-person events or hybrid events. Hopefully we'll be able to all safely meet in person. That is certainly my expectation. But obviously more details about these will be available to secondees in due time. And another thing that I wanted to flag up for future secondees is that we will require an initial report, an initial interim progress report, and then 1 month after a secondment is finished, a final report to be submitted to HRC. With this kind of flexibility, I expect that the last secondments might finish in 2026, so no later than 3 years from the 31st of December 2023. And Matt will now outline our assessment criteria.
Okay, thank you, Ege. So this call is a continuation of the pilot. Obviously, with a proposed programme duration of between 3 months and 3 years, some of the projects will be quite short and possibly of quite low value, and some of them will be of high value and longer. With a view to that, we would like to keep the application process as simple as possible. And so we're undertaking a process that will probably be more familiar to those of you who have applied for Innovate UK funding. The project form that we asked you, the proposal form that we asked you to submit as part of your JS application, that is known as the case for support, poses 4 questions that you must answer. And these questions line up pretty much exactly, in fact, exactly, with the assessment criteria below. So we'd like you to tell us about your secondment vision, a clear vision for the secondment, how it will contribute to the overall objectives. This is what you're doing, what you want to achieve. Then we'll ask you about the suitability of the secondee. How will the secondee be developed, their career aspirations, and how the secondment provides an appropriate mechanism for them to achieve those goals. It will also assess the suitability of the secondee to undertake the work that they've proposed to do. The suitability of the hosting organisation, you will address how the host will support the secondee, And we'll also take from that an assessment of whether the host is capable of undertaking the work with the secondee that is proposed in the secondment vision. And then finally, the benefits of the secondment project, and this is where you tell us about the benefits to the participants, in particular to the hosting organisation and the secondee, but also broader impacts that the project will have on the economy and on society. While I'm here, I've also seen in the QA that someone has asked a question, how we will judge whether an organisation that is not an RO or an IRO has demonstrable and current and ongoing capacity to undertake research and innovation activity. And I think this is probably the right place to address the answer to this question, as this will be covered in the assessment criteria. So in terms of suitability of hosting organisation, it is your responsibility when you apply to convince UKRI and AHRC that your organisation is capable of undertaking the research and innovation outlined in the secondment vision. With regards to the eligibility of IRO, non-IRO and RO organisations, we will have the assistance of Innovate UK in making sure that organisations are suitable to receive government funding. So obviously, if you're a business or a charitable organisation, there will be some extra steps that you need to undertake for us to ensure that you are suitable to receive funding. Thank you very much, and I'll now hand over to Aga for the last slide.
Thank you, Matt. This is just 3 important documents for everyone who might be applying for this opportunity. Obviously, you've all seen the funding opportunity details, otherwise you wouldn't be here in this webinar. But I wanted to flag that the conditions for those awards will be based on the UKRI terms and conditions for research grants. And if you have any specific queries about HRC research funding, we have a research funding guide available on our website. So the links are there. They're also there for the benefit of anyone who might be watching a recording of this webinar later. So we will now move on to the questions and answers session. And I just wanted to make it clear for anyone who maybe isn't that familiar with Zoom, at the very bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A button. If you click on that, you can type up your question in this webinar, and you can also choose to submit it either by disclosing your name or anonymously. So one question has already been answered by Matt, and let's move on to the next one. The slides will be shared, definitely. We want to publish them on the funding finder, that's the plan. The next question after that is there a maximum number of co-hosts that are allowed as a consortium approach? Matt, would you be happy to take that, please?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that we've allowed multiple hosts to not restrict the creativity, if you like, in the projects we get. So to allow the maximum scope for people to apply. I think I wouldn't say there's a maximum. What I would say is that there will be a requirement for some sort of collaboration agreement to be in place before the funding's awarded. And also we would expect every single partner to justify why they are on the proposal. So given the scale of these projects, I think although we're not stating a limit on the number of partners that can be involved in terms of hosts, there probably is a natural limit whereby if exceeded, you'd find it difficult to justify multiple organisation involvement. So it's basically up to the applicant to make a case. But I think there will end up being a natural ceiling, but we're not setting one now.
Thank you so much, Matt. The next question is about funding. Will the funding cover overheads if the host organisation requires them? I think it's a quick one to answer.
It is a quick one. I'm afraid the answer to that is no. So the only costs that will be paid on these secondments are the on cost, if you like, the replacement salary cost of the secondee. So essentially we're buying the secondee out of their normal employment. And then the other thing that will be paid is the travel and subsistence that are incurred by the secondee undertaking the work of the project. So that means that there won't be project costs covered and there won't be overhead costs for the organisation, because essentially we're not paying someone new. It's not a directly incurred post per se. What we're doing is buying out someone's existing time. I suppose the other thing it's worth pointing out while we're on the subject of finance is that because AHRC recognise that we're not paying overheads, these awards will be paid at 100% FEC and not 80% for eligible organisations, because they're not fully economically costed awards, because we're not paying overheads.
Thank you, Matt. One of the participants is asking, if you are an academic secondee going into a business host organisation, can you also contribute directly to their commercial income generating activities, for example, architectural projects, as well as your own innovative secondment project?
So I would say the answer to that is yes, providing you can create a case for how that will benefit you and your proposed career trajectory as a secondee. Remember, there are two primary elements to this in terms of benefit. One is the benefit to you as an individual and your career, and learning a new skill or a new insight into your area by undertaking work in a different environment is a very valid way that you could benefit from an innovation scholarship in architecture and design. And then, of course, the other aspect is benefiting the host organisation in some way, which you could also do by assisting the project. But of course, what we need to be careful of, in the reason why there needs to be a strong articulated research and innovation element, is because AHRC is, of course, a funder of research and innovation in the arts and humanities area. So what we can't do is fund projects which are essentially a service provision. So you need to be careful when you're writing your projects that you articulate the research and innovation benefit, because if at assessment your project is seen as being the provision of a service, then you may find yourself being rejected based on scope.
Thank you. We have a question here about one of the objectives of the call. It is enhancing career perspectives for the secondee. So how do you define that? How does UKRI define the career prospects? Are you able to give some examples of what you mean by this?
So yes, I'll try. I mean, I think I've already given one. So learning a new skill. So I mean, it could be. I mean, some of the examples we used in the biomedical sciences calls were are quite sort of cross-disciplinary. So, for example, learning how to innovate or how to move something beyond the research space into the product space if you're an academic. So getting more commercial experience, if you like, would be an eligible aim or goal if you were an academic. Conversely, if you were an individual working in the business environment, so a more corporate environment, using your secondment to gain valuable research skills would also be a valid goal. But it could also be learning new skills or taking your research or innovation in a different direction by working with a different sort of organisation and assisting them with your skills to undertake a goal. So it could also be a more traditional benefit in terms of published outputs or that sort of thing. But it's basically anything that you can articulate which will enhance your career trajectory. And that could be if you're an academic, enhancing your academic career, or it could be something which enables you maybe down the line to change career.
Thank you, Matt. I've got one very quick question which I can pick up myself. It is, are host organisations meant to find the secondee for their project, or will they be matched to the secondee? So AHRC or UKRI will not be making those connections for applicants. We expect that every application is already submitted as a partner endeavor from a group of at least 2 organizations, one of them being the one that employs the secondee and the other one being the hosting organization. So the matching should happen, should be done effectively by applicants before applications are submitted. And we're going to move on to a couple of questions about eligibility of specific types of organizations. For example, please can you clarify again which organizations that are not ROs or IROs are eligible to be a seconding or host organization under the scope?
So basically, to put it simply, any organisation that will be eligible to hold government research and innovation funding through either AHRC or Innovate UK. So we will accept funding from public bodies. We'll also accept funding from charitable organisations and from businesses. But for each of those types of organisation that we will allow, there are various caveats and various eligibility criteria which would allow us or possibly prevent us from offering funding. So, for example, here's an obvious one. If you're a business, you have to be registered. You have to be at the very minimum a limited company registered on Companies House. We would not be able to, for example, second a sole trader from a non-limited company. Likewise, a charitable organisation that applies for funding must be incorporated. So the charity must be an incorporated charity. It must be an entity in law in its own right for us to fund it. And as I say, you must also have a presence in the UK and a UK bank account. So an international company with no operational base in the UK would not be an eligible host or an eligible supplier of a secondee.
Thank you, Matt. And I noticed questions from 2 participants about particular types of organizations. So firstly, would an NHS trust be eligible to apply? And secondly, would a professional association such as the Design Council be considered to have capacity in architecture and design? Or would the non-RO or non-higher education institution need to be the one practicing architecture or design in such partnership?
So the question about the eligibility of the architecture and design professional body, I'll leave to you because I don't know enough about that, Aga. I think so. To answer the question about the NHS, that's an easy one. You are an IRA. So yes, you're eligible. Your organisation is eligible for funding. What you need to be careful for if you're applying through the NHRS is obviously to make sure that the project you're proposing fits the AHRC's requirements to have something to do with either architecture and design. So providing it does, providing you meet the scope of the call, yes, you are funding eligible.
Thank you. And in terms of the Design Council, I can only echo what Matt said earlier in terms of it is the applicant's responsibility to convince us in your application that you have that capability. And I don't know the exact sort of current mission vision statements of Design Council, but I would imagine that it's as a body representing the field, it's one that definitely has capacity in design. We'll move on to the next question. I'm just scrolling through to see if anyone voted for any questions, but no. So let's go back to them in the sort of order that they appeared. Do usual HRC eligibility rules apply for those applicants on fixed term contracts? For example, if a member of staff is on a contract that ends partway through the secondment grant, can the organisation extend their contract to cover the period of the secondment?
So I would say the answer to that one is yes, but I think you need to be careful. Obviously, if you're part timing, if the secondment is part time, then you would need to extend their contracts and cover the difference. So although we're not making, I suppose I apologise if I'm using a science to, I don't see why I should be. I don't know why I'm apologising. I haven't said it yet. if, for example, a person is a postdoctoral researcher at a HEI, we're not allowing postdoctoral researchers to apply. So postdoctoral researchers are eligible to apply, but the call is primarily focused on supporting people who have a career at the organisation, so or are normally employed by the organisation. A secondee can be a postdoc, but if they are a postdoc and they're going to be applying for an innovation scholarship, then we would expect them to be treated in the same way as an employee of the university, a full-time employee of the university during their secondment. In other words, what we don't want to happen is, let's say there's a 50% secondment for 3 years, part-time, 50%, and the postdoc runs out of time halfway through their award. What we don't want is someone to end up employed 50% of their time just doing the secondment work for the remaining 1.5 years of the project. We would expect the university in that case to underwrite them as a full-time employee at the university whilst they were finishing their secondment.
Thank you, Matt. I will take the next question because it is about HRC remit. Is community landscape architecture within the remit of this funding opportunity? Yes, definitely. On the discipline slide, which I showed earlier, we've got 2 sub-disciplines where I imagine community landscape architecture sort of overlaps them both. So that is community and social architecture, and next one is environmental architecture. If in doubt, please refer to the HRC remit page. I shall put a link to it in the chat in a second. And before I do that, I'll read out the next question, which is, you mentioned the secondee could be a named researcher on JES. Does it mean that the project could have more than one secondee involved? For example, if the secondee is the PI, could there be a research assistant or associate supporting the project in the sending organisation?
The answer to that one is no. The project is designed to support a single secondee undertaking work. If there was to be a PI and that PI was not the secondee, and this is quite an important point, then the PI would not be eligible to claim any salary costs for their time at all, or overheads. So the only thing that this award is going to support is the secondee's buyout salary on cost and the travel and subsistence relating to the secondment. So the only time we'd expect a secondee to be added as a named researcher is if they cannot be listed as the PI. So for example, in the case of a business, we would expect that the person who has financial authority within the company to manage a grant may not necessarily be the individual who is going to undertake the secondment. So that's one of the primary reasons why that has been put in the way it has and why the eligibility criteria have been set that way. In a university, we would normally expect the secondee to be the PI, but we also accept that there may be reasons why that's not possible. And in those circumstances, we would allow the PI not to be the secondee and the secondee to be listed as a DI researcher. But these projects are designed to support a secondee to do a secondment. So if you wanted to support more than one secondee, unfortunately, you would have to submit 2 applications, one for each secondment.
Thank you for that clarification, Matt. And you briefly mentioned travel and subsistence. The next question is about that. Will the funding support commuting to the host organisation, which I would say yes to, but the second part of the question is including frequent flights?
As long as they're justified, yes.
So we have to keep sustainability and ways of getting to places in mind.
Yeah, exactly. So there's ultimately these are going to, obviously, as all AHR schemes, they're going to be subject to postal peer review. And one of the things, of course, sorry, not postal peer review, they're going to be subject to peer review via a panel. And one of the things that panels do look at is, as part of the costing, is value for money, because we are, of course, funding it with public funds, so your taxes. So you need to ensure that the requests you make for funding are reasonable and that you've shown good due diligence in making them as reasonable and as best value for money as possible. So I put that caveat on, but in theory, no, there's no reason why you shouldn't claim it if it's appropriate.
Thank you. And there's a question that gives us a specific scenario that is linked to that. So if the secondee is based in Northern Ireland and the host has offices in both the UK and the Republic of Ireland, could the secondee be hosted in the Republic of Ireland office? This could save on carbon footprint, train versus air travel, as well as on time on commuting for the secondee.
So I think the answer to that one is yes. I'd say we'd probably be interested in finding out the details of that project as you prepared it. So we'd want to understand the context and the reason. I don't think carbon footprint in its own is necessarily a good enough justification. We need to know how the finances were going to work, because, for example, we wouldn't be able to pay in euros. The money would have to go to the UK-based part of the company in Ireland, so it would have to go to the Northern Irish part of the organisation. Sorry, wouldn't. It'd go to the secondee, it'd go to the host organisation, but the secondee project partner would need to be the Northern Irish part of the company, not the Irish part. So we'd need to understand the context, and I think it would need to be justified in terms of the nature of the project as well. So I'd suggest contacting us about that one when you've developed the concept a little further, maybe. And I'd reflect that to all of you, actually. I mean, obviously, we've got another 2 webinars, but if any of you have got a particularly complicated question or something that you think might be complicated, or something that you're concerned about regarding organisation eligibility, or you've got a bit of a funny idea for it, or you think it might be a funny idea about where you want to go, where you want to second to and from, give us a call and we can help you, and we can tell you whether it's eligible or not, and we can highlight any problems there might be.
Thank you so much, Matt, for emphasising that. I've got another question to which I'm fairly sure the same answer applies. In the case of business collaborators registered and with a bank account in the UK, but with overseas offices, does the collaboration have to be with the UK office?
So, yes, it does. And we normally expect the work to be undertaken in the UK office as well. Which is why the UK office needs to ideally be R&D capable. As an exception in the biomedical sciences call, we did allow limited amounts of work to be done overseas, but it has to be strong. There has to be a strong justification for it. But let me emphasize once again that the registered partner must be a UK business. Okay, now that isn't obviously multinationals are eligible. So if you wanted to, for example, do your project with the Microsoft Research Lab in Cambridge, that would be fine. But to use that example, they are registered in the UK, even though they're part of a US-based multinational. Now, if someone said, well, I want to do part of my project in Southern California, they'd have to justify that. They'd have to justify why that was absolutely essential to the benefit to the secondee, and they'd have to justify why it was important, so that peer review could then assess that against the value of the award, the potential benefit, and make a funding decision. So there needs to be a UK business, particularly if you're seconding from a company. It needs to be in the UK. That's really important because we cannot fund foreign companies. So there has to be a UK research and innovation site that we can fund with a UK bank account. That's if the secondee is going from a business somewhere else. We also, of course, as a research funder, have a responsibility to ensure that the money that we place into research and innovation benefits the UK in terms of the UK's economy and the UK as a society. So with that in mind, it also helps to have the impact, the majority of the impact, based in the UK.
And a very quick answer to the next question, which is also related to this theme. We absolutely won't disadvantage anyone who isn't that kind of mobile and isn't able to travel frequently. So the question was, will remote working be seen as a disadvantage? For example, for people with young children who cannot travel regularly to another workplace? Absolutely not. The flexibility in terms of hybrid or part-time option is also there to help you to adjust your secondment to any kind of additional obligations, such as carrying opportunities that you might have. And I'm scrolling back up. The next one is, does the entire project need to take place in the host organization, or could you propose a project which requires a part of the time within the sending organization, so your actual employer, and the rest within the host organization?
So the answer to that is probably yes, but I think you'd need to be careful about stressing what the benefits were. So if you're working in a different environment than you usually do, and the secondment's enabling you to work cross-sectorally in a very visible way, then the benefit can be sort of quite obvious and almost assumed by the assessment panel and by UKRI and HRC. If you're spending some of the secondment staying in the same environment that you always work, I think you have to be a little bit more careful in explaining how you meet that sort of like increasing porosity and working across sectors with a different organisation goal of the program. So how are you ticking those boxes on the purpose of the call, if you like, sort of core objective of the call? But there's no reason why you shouldn't spend some time. And like Aga's just said, it may well be that some projects could have an element that was undertaken remotely through Zoom. And it may well be that other projects don't take place at a traditional office or laboratory or studio location. They take place in the wild at a third location. So they take place at, for example, an archaeological site or a museum location. So we are willing to be as flexible as we can be. You just need to make really sure that you justify the work and the way of working that you propose for the secondment. And as I've said, if you want any particular advice about a specific idea that you come up with for a secondment down the line, Aga and I are here to help.
I'm just putting the email address to which you can send any further queries in the chat, but we still have 10 minutes. And I've noticed a couple of questions had some votes, so let's go straight to these. The first one is very short, and I can take that. Are senior academics eligible to apply? Yes, by all means, please go ahead and apply. This call is open to people on all career levels across the board, as long as you are you have postdoctoral capabilities in research and innovation. And the next question that received 2 votes is a specific research plan expected in the application, for example, including methods, or just a topic area to be explored? Matt?
So you need to provide sufficient detail for the assessment panel to be able to understand what you're doing. So if you're undertaking a short 3-month project, we'd expect you to be reasonably detailed about what you're proposing to do within that 3 months. If you're proposing a part-time project, which is going to take place over 3 years, we may expect you to have a reasonable idea about what you're going to do to initiate that project, what the goals are, but what we're not going to expect you to do is detail out the entire 3 years of your activity all in one go at the point of funding. So it depends really on the scope and scale of the project, but yes, you are going to need to provide sufficient detail about what you're doing to enable the peer review process to work, basically. You need to create a compelling argument for why you should receive funding. Indeed.
So I'm going to read a question out about the career change, and then we've got 2 that are related to salary levels. We mentioned that a future career change away from academia, for example, would be a legitimate benefit of the secondment. And the participant is concerned, how would they indicate that in their application, given that the current academic employers are unlikely to be happy about that prospect of them leaving?
Okay, that's a really interesting question. So I suppose we have had people transition before. I can't go into details, but the individual that I'm thinking of in biomedical sciences who ended up leaving their university and getting a job with a business that they hosted them, and in actual fact it happened about 3/4 of the way through the project, so they never actually finished the project. But I count that as a win, because their goal was to enhance their knowledge of downstage innovation. And basically what they did, to cut a long story short, is they essentially used their innovation scholarships to de-risk the prospect of their employment at the business. So the business had said in the past that it found it difficult to employ postdoctoral researchers or people with lots of postdoctoral research experience because they researched in a very academic way, and didn't understand the concept of business and innovation research. Remember, this is biomedical sciences and engineering we're talking about, so I appreciate it's very different from architecture and design. And what the company told us was that basically they got to know this individual and worked with them on the projects, and it became apparent to them that after they'd worked for the company for a number of months, that they could find a home for this individual in the company, and their skill set matched their aspirations very well. And so they offered them a job before the end of the project, and they're now employed by the company. Obviously, once they were employed by the company, the project had to close because there was no longer a secondee. I suppose the point I'm making here, albeit very drawn out and long, is that you don't need to be explicit about that being the outcome. I suppose a safer object for you, if you're worried that the university might not fund you because they wouldn't want to lose you, is to word the project or talk about the project in terms of increasing your perspective of the broader architecture and design research and innovation landscape. And then if that enables you to make a career move in the future, UKRI and AHRC would count that as an impact.
Absolutely. The next two questions are about salary levels, as I mentioned. So is there an upper limit to the salary that UKRI can cover per individual secondee? And do we match the current salary rate of the secondee?
So essentially, pro rata, yes. That's kind of the point where we're buying the secondee out. So is there an upper salary limit? Yes. £300,000, assuming that 200, sorry, it was £300,000 in biomedical sciences. Sorry, made a mistake there. £200,000 is the maximum amount of funding you can claim for. So assuming there's no travel and subsistence cost, the most you could spend on salary in the project duration would be 200,000. So there's no salary cap per se, but you have to frame the duration of your project, the flexibility of part-time and full-time and the travel assistance to fit within that £200,000 window.
Thank you, Matt. We've got another question that received 2 votes. If there are costs associated with producing the innovative output, for example, graphic design, film, something else, can these be funded as part of the grant? And do we need to cost this in as part of the application, or alternatively, would the hosting organization need to cover that cost?
So basically you've answered the question yourself. You're quite right. The hosting organisation would have to cover the costs. So the host organisation, sort of, if you like, with the secondee defines the project. It's kind of assumed or expected in most circumstances that the project will solve a problem or challenge or benefit in some way the host organisation, and that therefore the host organisation will bear the burden of the costs of the project, except for, of course, for the cost of the secondee's salary, as the secondee will remain employed by the seconding organisation, who will be covered for the time that they spend away on the secondment. So essentially, all of the, off the top of my head, and if I forget anything, it doesn't mean we're paying for it, training costs associated with the person starting at the host organisation. So, for example, let's say it's someone in design who's going to be working on the hard end of an architecture company. and that's going to involve them visiting some sites. And they need to undertake health and safety training to be allowed to wear a hard hat and walk around a building site. The business host would need to cover the cost of that safety training. They would need to cover the cost of the PPE. They'd need to cover any additional project costs, any overheads associated with having that employee working on site or in the business's offices would have to be covered by the host. So, and as part of the application, we expect host organisations to be explicit about the costs and specific about the costs, particularly the auditable costs that they are expending on the project or expect to expend on the project.
Thank you, Matt. And I think we'll go through 2 more questions in our last 2 minutes. I'll take the first one. They're both about the JES system, so the system EKRI and HRC useful grant applications. Is the JES application a standard JES application, i.e. with the standard categories for completion such as objectives, summary, academic beneficiaries, etc.? Yes, it is. And on our funding opportunity description, we have outlined that the JES form has the following headings. It's the applicant, summary, financial resources, project partner or hosting organization. And then you need to also submit separate documents, and these are the case for support, your CV for the second D, and here please use the narrative CV template that we have made available on the funding finder. It is a new sort of way of approaching CVs. It allows you to describe in more detail what you've achieved so far, rather than just list previous qualifications and previous maybe grants that you were involved in. So we're hoping it increases accessibility and diversity of candidates. And we also need you to submit a letter from your project partner, aka hosting organization, through JES. The next question, maybe you could take it, Matt. Quite a lot on the JES guidance is focused on what businesses need to do. Is this term being used as a catch-all term for any organization that is not a higher education institution or an independent research organization?
Yes, so basically any organisation that's not registered on JES and when I say registered on JES, I mean the organisation is registered on JES, not the individual. So any organisation that is not registered on JES, the business stuff that's listed and the guidance applies to. It doesn't apply to organisations that are listed as approved to apply for funding through JES as a matter of course, so IROs and HEIs. So, I mean, to explain that to people who might be less familiar with the JES system, when you register on the JES system as an individual, if you register an account and it gives you limited access and asks you to register an organisation, that or your organisation isn't on the organisations list, then you're going to need to follow the business rules. If you can register an account and have it approved by your organisation, so it becomes an authorised JES account, then you don't need to follow the business rules because your organisation is recorded as being a funding eligible organisation on JES system. And again, if you have any doubts about this, please do contact us and we'll be able to help you.
Indeed, once again, I'm just reiterating the email address to which you can send any further questions is in the chat. It is enquiries@hrc.ukri.org. And also you're very welcome to attend the 2 following webinars if you would rather speak to us in person in that kind of webinar format. Apologies that we didn't manage to go through all the questions in the Q&A, but I think we've done quite well answering 20 odd of them. And I would like to thank Matt very much for co-hosting this webinar with me, and to all the participants for being so engaged and asking those questions. I hope that this indicates that this Innovation Scholars Secondments in Architecture and Design funding opportunity is attractive to you. And we're looking forward to receiving your applications in due time. The 26th of May is the closing date for this opportunity. And if you'd like to further down the line revisit the recording of this webinar, we are going to upload it on the funding finder opportunity page, which again, I'm just going to quickly put the link to in the chat. I think if not this week, then next week, that's where the recording should appear. And thank you so much for UKRI events colleagues as well for helping us with the technicalities during today's webinar. We can now stop the recording, and I wish you all a good afternoon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.